Hey, what's going on? My name is Bim, and this is the Gamdias HERMES P1 RGB mechanical gaming keyboard. And I'd like to give a thank you, a nice shout out to Gamdias for sending us over a unit for us to test out and play around with. We really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's talk about the keyboard itself. So right out of the box, it comes with, of course, the keyboard that you see here, a detachable wrist rest, a really nice one at that, a manual, and tucked in its own little compartment underneath the keyboard is a keycap remover. What it doesn't come with, though, are extra switches. So you can remove the keys, and I think you can order in for the switches from Gamdias themselves, but it doesn't come packaged with the P1. Although it would have been cool to have like a couple extra switches here and there, just so if one breaks or whatever. With the wrist rest, the total size of the keyboard is 448 by 202.4 by 36.9 millimeters. And here it is next to the Red Dragon Kala K557 and the Banana for scale. It weighs around 1.56 kilograms or about 3.4 pounds, so it's a little lighter than the Red Dragon, but it's pretty hefty. It's hefty enough that it won't be moving around on your desk, and it's got that nice weight to it that I kind of enjoy on all my gadgets. So the back of the keyboard itself is plastic, but the body in front is brushed metal. Well, it has a brushed metal finish, and it is a metallic material. It's even got some chrome up here on top. But the back is plastic, and there are 5 rubber feet. Very nice, very grippy rubber feet underneath. The 2 stands, so if you want to have your keyboard at a certain angle, each of them do have their own rubber feet, so that's good, so it really won't be moving around. It does have cable management grooves here at the back. In my experience, it doesn't really work that great, and I don't really need the cable management grooves. I just run it through the cable management hole that my monitor has. So that's but it's good to have that. The wrist rest is actually quite useful. It's actually quite comfortable, but it only slips into these slots. It doesn't lock in place or anything. I mean, if you have your wrists on it and you've got some weight on it, then it stays in place perfectly. It's fine, but don't try picking it up without securing the wrist rest first, because it will fall off. The keys are standard plastic. They are raised keycaps, so you can see that the light does come from underneath, and it makes it easier to replace the keys with the included keycap remover. And of course, they are backlit. It is an RGB keyboard. Almost everything is these days. One thing that I did find weird at the start, so even before I started using this keyboard, one thing I did find kind of weird was the placement of the function key and the Windows key. So they're kind of swapped around in most keyboards. And there's a reason behind the placement, right? And it's for using on the G1 macro keys. It just makes it easier if you're playing, especially like a first-person shooter or whatever, where your WASD keys are first and foremost the keys that you will be using. It's just easier to access your macro keys with your left hand. So that's why it's there. But someone who does use this keyboard for both work and play, I tend to use the window key quite a lot, just for minimizing my desktop, for locking my computer, for projecting, for bringing up various Windowsy things. At first, I thought it would be a very awkward to use, but I kind of got used to just switching it around in my mind. Every now and then I still make a mistake and press the function key when I really meant to press the Windows key. However, in the included Hera software, there is a tick box where you just press it, you activate it, and it just automatically switches. Okay, so let's talk about the specs a little bit. It does come with the built-in memory of 72 kilobytes. There's a polling rate of 1000 hertz. And of course, it does feature N-key rollover because it is a mechanical keyboard. And for those who don't know, N-key rollover refers to the ability of a keyboard to register key presses individually. So it handles simultaneous key presses a lot better than a membrane keyboard And then there is consecutive mode, or as the website calls it, continuous attack mode via the software, where on regular typing, if you hold down a key, it looks like this, kind of like if you hold down A, it's more like with consecutive mode, it's So that's the difference, and I think there might be some gaming uses for it. I personally haven't found a game that would use it, but I'm sure there's a bunch. The switches are Gamdias certified TTC switches, not Cherry MX Blues, though they try to emulate the feel, the sound, and the clickiness of the Blues, and just like the Blues, they're about at 55 grams of pressure to actuate. Alright, now let's talk about the functions that you have available to you without having to install the software, the stuff that you could do on your keyboard without having to install the HERA. So pressing the function key and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, those are your profiles. You can switch from one profile to the next on the fly. Pressing function F2, F3, F5, F6, F7, and F8, those are your multimedia keys. So you could, skip a track, go back, go forward, pause, volume up and down, or mute. Then you have function F4, which switches your WASD controls to your arrow keys, which nicely enough have WASD marked on them, so that's a nice touch. Function F11 locks the entire keyboard, so if you press that, you could press whatever on your keyboard and nothing will happen. Just remember to press F11 again to actually start your keyboard back up. Pressing function and the Windows key enables game mode, which just disables the Windows key. So when you're playing a game and you accidentally hit the Windows key, the window start menu thingy on your Windows won't pop up. You've also got on the fly macro recording. So you start recording by pressing function and F9. Then it'll indicate that it's starting to record your key presses by the blinking lights that usually indicate num lock, scroll lock, and that other lock, caps lock. And then to end the on-the-fly recording, you press function and F9. And then after you end the recording, you have to specify which macro key you want to assign it to. And the macro keys are function spacebar, which is G1, or function B, which is G2. Function and insert will give you the wave effect, which shows all the colors moving from one direction to the next. Pressing function and up will bring it upward. Function down will do the same thing. Function left and right will move it in those directions. Function and home is the slide effect, which shows the lights moving from left to right. Pressing function and page up will speed it up. Function and page down will slow it down all the way until a halt. Function delete is rotation. From the center of your keyboard, the lights go and rotate around the center. Function page up speeds it up. Function page down slows it down. Function left and function right control which direction the rotation moves. Function and end is static. So this is what actually I prefer. Pressing function and end just gives you just one color. Or pressing it again, function and end just turns off the colors. Function and 8 is brightness up. Function and down is brightness down. It's not very bright, won't light up your room, so keeping it at the top brightness is comfortable. Now, if you want more control over your keyboard and on the effects that you'll be able to use with your keyboard, then you'll have to download the HERA software. It's on the website. It's fairly easy to download. It's a straightforward download and install. And on the software, these are the things that you can do. So you can assign keys, right? So in the first tab where it says key assignment, go to general, and you can just assign whichever key to whichever function. If you have some weird key binding preference, you could do that. Function and G allows you to assign your macro keys, and macro management, the other tab, lets you record your macros. So you could edit, you could even copy macros and then edit them. You could even include mouse commands as well as keyboard commands, delays in milliseconds or in seconds. Keyboard luminance is where you get to play around with your colors. So also on the right, these are the profiles. Per profile, you could have like a different set of macros and different set of colors. So let's pick profile 3. It's a profile I don't normally use. Okay, so this first one allows you to pick whatever color and it's static, right? So you can move it, the RGB sliders here to whatever to produce a certain effect. And it's really good that you see the preview of the effect on your screen. You can adjust the brightness, 4 levels of brightness. The second one will allow you to customize your keyboard layout. So let's say we want to do white for enter, we can do that, or we can make the macro keys and the function keys like yellow and WASD keys yellow. See, that's totally fine. So if you want to be able to play a game and in one glance see where those weird keys are, so like for example on Overwatch, to switch a hero you have to press H. So instead of having to feel around for it, because you only do have one hand on the keyboard and the other hand is on the mouse, so it's going to be just easier to see. So H is highlighted here, as you can see. The third one would be the different effects. So the first one would be breathing, which pulses your keyboard light very slowly. You could change the color here to whatever color. You could also see the preview of the effect on your screen. You've also got wave, which is one of the functions that you can select just from your keyboard. Responsive fade out would be when you click a key, whichever key, and it lights up. Bringing the speed down makes it fade out much slower. You could also change the colors if you wanted to. Let's say we want to make it like white. And then marquee would be lighting up one key at a time, moving at a specific pattern. So you can speed it up here. Here I have the speed set at 4, so you could move it to 10 and it becomes very fast. Again, you could change the colors here. Ripple would be another responsive type of effect. So whichever button you press shows off like a ripple. Slowing it down makes the ripple go slower. Makes it matrixy. So let's make it green. So if that's your thing, it's actually quite amusing. You go ahead and do that. Then we have responsive fade in, which is like fade out, only the lights come in slower as opposed to coming in fast and just fading out. Making it faster looks like a key press, right? So if you want to use that, make it slow. Neon just goes through all of the neon colors available to you one at a time. Slowing it down makes the switch of the colors slower. Colorful marquee is just like the marquee, only you can't pick the color. It's like all the colors. Rainbow drops would be randomly giving a color to a key. And this is probably good if you want to complement your Christmas tree. Circular marquee is like the marquee, but it goes in a snake-like pattern. So you can change the colors here. Sliding in is one of those effects available to you from just the keyboard. And then rotation, which is also one of the effects available right at the get-go. Then you've got assigning, sounds, and timer. So I personally don't use this so much, but I know what you can use it for, and a lot of the really serious gamers would have a use for this. So for example, you have a rotation in an MMO or some kind of MOBA, and you want to keep a certain specific skill up more often than not. So you could either set let's say a specific key and set a specific timer to display. So what you could do is, let's go to new timer. So every time I press A, right, We'll have to edit that. Timer settings. So we have to turn this on screen display. So you could either set an alarm for it, or choose not to. It could just be OSD. I personally think the alarms are a little distracting. It plays a sound. So for example, you've got a rotation, and you want to know when the cooldown is off. So you could do this, right? So you could set the OSD in a smaller font and move it somewhere non-obstructive. So every time you press that key, it appears. And let's say your main has your main skill that you want to keep uptime for as much as possible, as close to 100% as possible, is at what's a reasonable amount of time? 8 seconds. So every time you press that key, why is it not working? Let's say 8 seconds. Oh, sorry, this is just for testing. It should be here. Let's say 8 seconds. Countdown. All right, so you press that, it shows up 8 seconds. So you know when the cooldown is off. At the end of the cooldown, you could also assign a sound. So you can easily set maybe one of these 5 preloaded alarms. And they're really, really weird. The sounds are quite distracting, the preloaded ones. But you could record your own sound. I think you could even use like a voice reminder if that's what you want to do. So there, it's usually used for MMOs and MOBAs and whatever. So I turned it off, so if I press the key, it wouldn't trigger. So that's pretty much it for the... oh, sorry, something I forgot to mention. The profiles. You can set certain games or programs. You could assign a profile to games. So whenever you launch a certain game, the profile will just go ahead and load up for you, as opposed to you having to selectively pick whichever profile you want to use for specific games. You could just make it automatic. So that's pretty much it for the Hermes P1. So I personally really like this keyboard. I kind of wish that the squishiness and the clickiness and the sound for all the keys were consistent across all of the keys, but like for the unit that I was sent, the home button doesn't sound quite the same as the other buttons around it. Now I know it's not a big deal. It's not a game breaker or anything, but it would still be nice to have some consistency just across the board. Plus, all the functions that you have in the software, I don't think that a beginner would necessarily use them. So if you're looking to up your game, if you're a big MMO fan, if you're a big MOBA fan, then that function might be for you. I don't think that the Hermes P1, at least with all of the functions considered, is a beginner mechanical keyboard. So this could easily be your first mechanical keyboard. It's just got a lot of functions that you may not necessarily use. But then again, for the price, which is at $119.99 US, or roughly 6,122 pesos, or something I found at Lazada which went for 6,490. It's not bad. It's a very advanced keyboard with high quality switches, with a lot of function and a lot of bells and whistles that you wouldn't normally get on a mechanical keyboard for the same price point. So may not be great for beginners, or at least there's a lot of things that beginners might not easily pick up on, but it's once you're ready to move into it, at least you have the functions right there. All right, so it's a great keyboard. See if you can pick one up. And I do highly recommend the Hermes P1. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Bim. I'll catch you guys in the next one.